I'm Todd Parapasic with the Erie Art Museum, and I am sitting here with an incredible artist. We just put up his exhibition, Future Memories, here at the Erie Art Museum, and his name is John Eric Steiner. Hi.
Hi, Todd.
I feel like with that opening, it's like you just walked in, but you've been sitting here for about 5 minutes.
I'm happy to leave and come back and make a more dramatic entrance if that's okay.
That's,
all right.
That's what you guys do. Well, why don't you kind of, tell us a little bit about yourself and
Sure.
more about your artistic journey.
I started out as a musician. Right out of high school, I started playing in bands, and I dedicated all of my 20s to that.
Yeah.
And then, when you're a musician, you end up having to make a website and you have to make t-shirts and all these things. So actually in the process of having t-shirts printed, the company that used to print our t-shirts said, hey, do you want to work at the screen printer? So I said, sure. And then I started working there, and then I got into graphic design for them. Someone left, they needed a graphic designer, so I learned Illustrator. And then I studied graphic design for several years and did that for a little while professionally, and realized that I wanted to make fine art. So I went to Mass Art. I was in the SIM department at Mass Art, the Studio for Interrelated Media. And then went to Lesley for grad school. And over the last decade, I've focused mostly on filmmaking and cinema, kind of marrying visual art and sound together is kind of how I look at my practice. Yeah.
That's quite the artistic journey, a lot of steps.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of musicians also make films nowadays because it's a similar sort of storytelling is a big part of songwriting, and a lot of great tunes are very visual. If you listen to your favorite songs, they throw in a lot of lines that, every artist nowadays is very influenced by cinema. Mm-hmm. So they all sort of tie together, and I like to try to hang out at that intersection.
Yeah, I guess, would you say that you miss, focusing your efforts on music at all?
So,
or are you more comfortable and happy with the fine art?
Yeah, so almost all my pieces have a sound element, so I don't really miss it because I do the same thing. I tend to, in my music career before, it was mostly vocals and guitar, sort of traditional, popular music. And now I work with mostly synthesizers, but I really do enjoy throwing in like a dirty guitar sound into a gallery space if I get a chance to bring it home. But so I still make a lot of music, and as I said, I sort of think of it as a collaboration with myself. Like I'll work on the visual stuff, and then I take my visual hat off once it's edited, and I put my musician hat on, and I kind of work both sides. Keeps me from getting bored in it. I find that the two things feed into each other, and I make choices that I might not have made because they're the two things, right? There's the visual and then there's a sound, but when you put them together they make a third thing, and that's sort of what I find the most interesting, is what happens when they're married together.
Now I've noticed with you mentioned how you worked in you worked with filmmaking and cinema, and I feel like when I and a lot of people think of cinema, you think of kind of longer, long time spans.
Sure.
A short film could be anywhere from 5 minutes to 30 minutes, or you get into feature length films or television, serial film. However, a lot of the work in your exhibition, Future Memories, it's based around loops, like short 15, 20-second loops.
Sure.
Now, did you work in longer film, longer term film, and what made you move towards kind of the
shorter loops? I do work in longer form narrative film. I still do longer form experimental film as well in video, but so it's a great question because, and it's actually a conversation that I've had with other filmmakers. There's the question of where does this piece live, right? Is it going to be something that we're making for festivals or short film festivals,
Right.
or is it sort of a gallery space? And I think every filmmaker that is also a fine artist or film, there's obviously a lot of overlap between the film and video art and filmmaking, right? There's, especially now, a lot of times you go to galleries, you see films there that the quality and all of that, the technical skill is the same, rivals that of Hollywood, movies. Yeah. But I think so you have to sort of draw the line for yourself, like when is something more appropriate for a gallery setting than for sort of a theatrical release. Yeah. And for me, I have like sort of a checklist of sort of things, and because I don't want to shy away from thinking of gallery spaces as a place where you shouldn't have narrative storytelling devices. So I don't want to draw the line there. So I tend to draw it around length and sort of how far from what people traditionally think of as cinema is it, right? So for example, one of the pieces, the telephone piece that I have here, it's obviously a found telephone and it's a sound loop, but the hope is that people will pick it up and listen to it, and when you do, it's creating a very cinematic moment. In fact, one of the themes of this show is there's a lot of found footage and a lot of found items.
Right.
Many of them are from here in Erie. I've been here for 10 days and made a lot of the work here. But that piece is taken quotes from the femme fatale from a lot of my favorite old noir movies, and I wove that into sort of a narrative. So even though that's a phone, the idea is that you pick it up and have a cinematic experience. And so playing around with what is cinema, what is storytelling, these types of things. And it all comes back to the question of what lives in a theater space, what lives in a gallery space.
Yeah, I definitely feel like a gallery space, there is a challenge with presenting a narrative experience in a gallery space. Sure. Because I just feel like the way you generally experience art in a gallery space, it's supposed to be brief. You're supposed to move through the space. Yeah. And if you stick on a piece, it's more to study the piece and to break it down. And you can't really study an hour and a half narrative film in a public gallery space.
Right. It would be awkward to hang out for an hour.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, in the gallery, obviously, it's like a white box space, and there's a ton of stuff around it, so you're competing with so much. Whereas in a black box, sort of a theater space, all eyes are on the rectangle on the the screen. So yeah, and again, I think it's just I don't think that precludes cinematic moments. No. But you just have to be creative, obviously, with how you're doing it, how you're presenting it. And I think you're right. I think keeping it short. I think it works. I'm not saying other artists should do that, but I find that I appreciate, I think I read somewhere that artists or visitors to galleries look at pieces an average of like 12 seconds a piece or something like that. So, I try to keep it, I try to not presume that people are going to spend a ton of time, but I think there's something meditative about loops, and I hope that people will hang out for a little while because, for example, Girl on a Swing, this piece, that was culled from, about an hour of video. And it's down to a loop that's, 10 seconds. Right. And I found that when I was creating a piece, I was like, wow, this loop is really meditative. And I really found, that sort of 10 seconds subsumed the whole larger thing. And I was like, this is the moment that I wanted to, capture.
So actually, you mentioned a couple minutes ago, how a lot of the pieces that you have on display here at the Art Museum are found objects, and I kind of wanted to veer into your process.
Sure.
So just do you have like a set general process that you follow as an artist, or is kind of each piece a new process?
Across all of my work, whether it's songwriting or filmmaking or pieces for galleries, I think for me, my process is questioning. Right? Like some art, I feel like they're telling you what to think, here's an opinion, and that's very valuable. But for me, I find that a lot of times when I'm making art, I'm sort of questioning a moment, and then I like look back at what I've created or listen to the song I've written, and I say, oh, I'm feeling something I didn't realize was there. It's like a way of communicating. Maybe like your right brain is communicating a little more fluidly while you're making art or something like that. So I find it's very meditative, and it's also a way of like sort of communing with my own subconscious in a way,
Right.
and I'm sort of giving that sort of voiceless part of myself form and making it able to communicate. So with this experience, the director here, Laura Demenza, was kind enough to, when she asked me about the show, I was like, I really want to do it, but I'd rather come for a little longer and make some stuff there, because I think site-specific work is important. And I think when you make video work, it's really easy to say, like, I'm going to email you the file. Feel free to put this up wherever you know, and I really want to do the opposite of that. I feel like it's valuable to work with, you're going to come from a totally different place with your work. For example, the piece that's behind us, Sunset, those were all found monitors from a local place called Cam that was kind enough to let us go through some of the gear they were getting rid of. And the sunset was filmed here because, you know, Lake Erie is absolutely stunning, those of you who don't spend any time here. And so I was inspired to put this stuff together. So this is all like found stuff, and it was a lot of fun to play with the old analog technology, because one of the things, you know, I find nowadays when I look at SD, you know, CRT monitors is how amazingly vague the image is right now. Like everything's HD and UHD, and it's so clear, and you know we're so spoiled with this beautiful image that we have all the time, and this media that we just take in our phone. These, you know, it's amazing how far it's come. And so when I look at this SD technology, it's like it's almost a slightly abstract wash of color compared to what we're used to. And I feel like that's just an interesting tool to kind of bust out of the toolbox. And so I wanted to sort of create some moments like that in the show, like find some things here and reach outside my usual environment and turn it into something that was a little more specific and ephemeral to the show and the time.
What is, I guess, if it's not up here, describe your favorite thing that you've ever made.
So going back to being a musician, I was in a band for many years, and we made a few records. But one record in particular we had produced by a real producer, and it was like, you know, sold in record stores, and it got used on, as you see in my credits, some TV shows and some movies and stuff like that. And that was the first time that people outside of my sphere and people that I actually played in front of sort of were, you know, introduced to something that I made. And the fact that it was like competing, like I went to, first time I saw it at a record store, it was next to, you know, the name of the band was Baby Strange, and we were like just a few sections down from Badfinger, who I love, and the Beatles was right there. And so that moment blew my mind, you know, it was really fun. So that was probably that was when I realized, like, oh, you can make something in your room, and then it can be released in a way that strangers are gonna see this thing or hear this thing. And that sort of blew my mind. You know, it was eye-opening for me. So I guess I would say that, but if you want to talk about visual art sort of pieces that I've made, Girl on a Swing is one of my favorites. I think mostly because it started out as a piece that lived just on a Raspberry Pi on the wall. It started out as a very small piece.
Right.
And we just kind of decided to blow it up, and I was a little nervous, like, is this gonna... Yeah, and I felt like it worked in a larger space, and it really fills up that wall in a way that I found really mesmerizing. And it's the way that the fact that the piece still has just as much life on the larger screen as it did on the tiny little 3.5-inch screen. I was really proud of that as well. So yeah, that's my answer to your very difficult question.
Yeah, nobody likes picking favorites. Well, thank you for sitting here with me.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for bringing your art into this space, and like bringing video like art into the Erie Art Museum.
Thank you guys so much for having me. It's really been great. I really had a blast in Erie. I met a lot of really cool people. Again, thank you so much to you guys and the staff, especially to Laura and James, the Kime family, who were kind enough to put me up for a few days while here. They were amazing. Jamie, Mike, and the whole gang. And I did some I toured around some of the media facilities here, and it's amazing. The scene in Erie is much more robust than I realized.
It's a potent little place as far as arts go.
Yeah, I've been very impressed and really had a great time. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So right before we're done, why don't you let everybody know where they can find you, like on the internet?
Yeah, so I have a website, johnericsteiner.com, and I try to keep it sort of up to date.
Cool.
So.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, Well, thank you for sitting here with me.
Thank you.
And thank you guys for watching.